Hey everyone, welcome back to Command Value 1. This is a podcast about apparently we have an incoming transmission from Overlord Shivek. Let's see what he has to say.
This resistance communication provides a base level of merriment that my host enjoys. Be aware that we, Scourge Overlords, are aware of this resistance activity and only allow for its continuance at our pleasure. It is good to allow the free humans this outlet. It distracts them, makes them easier to control. We, Scourge, particularly enjoyed the previous episode describing the forced labor that TT Combat subjects the so-called volunteers to. Hearing the drones talk about the mediocrity of endless demos made all the glorious Scourge listeners ever so slightly coil tighter around the nervous systems of our hosts. The cruelness and efficiency of sorting out such tasks truly reflects Scourge society. The Gestalt Scourge forces would also at this time like to squash any and all rumors of a so-called battle for Earth. At no point will we ever allow for that opportunity to occur. This talk of a reconquest is being circulated by those who have not yet been honored with the privilege of being a host. There is no battle for Earth. It is ours and shall remain that way. The glorious Scourge shall... Hey, do you guys see that flashing light? What does that mean?
Well, here's the hoping that Overlord Shivak has a swift recovery. So, let's jump straight into what's new. Dreadnoughts stats are out, and pre-orders are a week away from shipping. Anyone have anything to add to that?
Yeah, it looks like it's been decently well received. I think the stats have been. Mixed feelings. I think a lot of people are kind of jumping the gun on doing just the usual stuff. They see numbers and it scares people. So hopefully everybody will get them on the table, even if they do proxies. Try them out, see how you like them before considering them dead on arrival or whatever. A lot of thought went into those. Obviously, a lot of design work went into those with Dave. So hopefully everybody at least gives them a shot anyways.
Well, it is a crime that Shaltari Dreadnought that you painted up did not get better photos on the webpage, because that thing is sweet.
Yeah, it was tens of thousands of dots. It was insane.
Maybe you should share a photo of that in the Command Value 1 group.
Yeah, I could do that. I got a couple of fairly decent shots. Not, like, amazing, but...
Are you saying the dots have dots, Don?
The dots have dots. Every dot is dotted twice.
Or not three times the dots that don't have dots have dots?
Nope. I wasn't going three times. Yeah, it was challenging. Very challenging. I don't want to say it wasn't unenjoyable, but it's one of those things where you get to a point and it just has to be done, so you have to get through it. You know, you can't just set it aside and go back to it a couple weeks after you've had your a break. So, but yeah, I think it turned out pretty good. As always, I'll be self-critical, and I know I could have done a little better, but...
Well, you're always your own worst critic.
Right.
Jordan, you have any thoughts on Dreadnoughts?
My thoughts are going to kind of come into our game recap.
Yeah, I kind of figured that.
When you and I played, so we can just pause till the later note.
That'll work. So, Don, you announced a while back that the version 2 beta roundup was going on. You were looking for opinions, thoughts, ideas on what needed to be tweaked out in version 2. And I know that you've moved into getting some rewrites done by yourself and with Dave and so on and so forth. So, anything that you can tell us about the Beta 2 progress right now?
Yeah, so, well, first off, thanks to everybody who gave feedback, of course. That's always the hard part about doing a beta in a public format, because, a lot of people will share their opinions and everything, but it's not always constructive feedback, and then you got to go through and find out, like, what's actually, like, something that needs to be changed, and not just, like, one guy has a problem with this thing, So, the process has been interesting. It's the first time I've done this large of scale for rules. Like, units are one thing, but doing a whole rule set of feedback is a little bit different. But yeah, so what's that, Jordan?
It's kind of hard to distinguish between the loudest complaint or comment on the beta versus maybe the most sensible.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the whole point of the anonymous feedback portion of that was, to let people kind of express their opinions without being talked over, which is good. And then just going through the collection, you can see, was something mentioned once or was something mentioned, 50 times. So that's what we kind of went through.
Fire OP came up 50 times.
Right. So the core ones, no surprise, CQB was huge. Needed a lot of clarifying. I don't think it needed a lot of tweaking. We did minor tweaks to it, but overall, I just need to be worded better, and we'll be adding in a chart on there so that people can kind of go down the list and know exactly what they do, step by step.
That was for CQB, you said?
Yeah. And then Flame, of course, Flame and Fires. That needed to be toned down. It was just a little too devastating and easy to do. Plus, there was too many dice rolls. That was a common feedback. It was just, you gotta roll for your hit, and then roll for the fire, and then roll at the end. And, it's just getting to be a little bit too much. So we simplified that, made it really easy. So now Fires will start on the 2-hit portion of that. And then we adjusted the chart at the end, so it's not quite as devastating.
That's good. That kind of takes flame units back a step, because they were kind of becoming the superior demo unit for the early parts of that beta.
Yeah, and then also we were having an issue too where it just made more sense to take more cheap fire units, because they were going to get more chances to roll on the fire over the chunkier tanky like flame units and stuff like that. So having the 2-hit roll be the portion that starts the fire, it kind of takes care of that as well, because you'll get more shots out of something that, like a larger tank, than you will. Like a Fireblade has more shots, I think, than the
Wolverine C.
So yeah. Just a little bit of clarification on objectives. That's not too bad. We're removing approach types as of right now, anyways. Nobody's using them. Nobody likes them.
I won't miss approach types, I'll be honest.
Yeah, it was kind of a cool thing to try and add in there. We tried it. People tried it. Nobody really cared about it too much, so not a big deal. And then against Dave's Will, we're changing the portion where all units in all units in the same battle group had to shoot at the same time. So that was another big complaint, is it was tying up the game, and people didn't like that. So we're changing that back to, basically, unless you're sharing a transport, you can fire by squad, which is how it was in the first edition.
Okay.
See, a little bit of tweaks on units. Obviously, there were some clerical issues with some of the core units.
Are Firstborn no longer just troops?
What's that?
Are Firstborn no longer regular troops?
I'll have to check on that.
They sure as hell better not be, my man.
Does the light shelter gate still have 5 or 7 DP or whatever it said it was?
No, that's been changed back. So they got to move it back and lost their DP. So, a few other tweaks too. I mean, you'll see. It was just like a couple small things. Like the Spirit Gate was obviously a huge one, so we were correcting that. Falcon, the cohesion was 1 for some reason, so they went back to 1 to 4 wide. A lot of complaints on the Janus, so we're reducing the points on that. Jaguar needed a passive save correction. The Coyote's getting a point reduction. Just a few tweaks like that. So I don't want to go down the whole list, talk up everything, but trying to see if there's any other.
All right. So aside from that, we've got the limited edition Condor sculpt that just got announced, releasing the same day as the Dreadnoughts.
So that is actually, let me bring that up. Basically, what it is, it's a different sect of the UCM, and due to their area and their, I guess, their needs or whatever, they changed the Condor to look like that.
A little more of a rugged design.
Yeah, a little bit more rugged, a little bit more. As somebody pointed out, it does look like the cockpit is now a 2-person cockpit rather than the single person that it was before. So, I don't know. I'm sure Dave has his particular reasons why he'd want to do that. Sometimes it just looks cool. So,
well, it certainly does look cool. And as someone that has 3 Aegeans for his PHR, I have no problem having some alternate medium dropship sculpts.
No, yeah, it's cool too, because especially with version 2, you're going to be using a lot more of these medium drop ships. So being able to have a little bit of variety on the table is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, is this a show only / like internet exclusive or whatever?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So, but there's plenty of opportunities throughout the year to get it.
So the other exclusive that's coming out the same time as all of this is the 2-Up New York, which, if you have a 2-Up Beijing, then you know what you're in for.
Yeah, so the 2-Ups, since we sold a few of the Kickstarter ones, since they were overproduced, they've been flying off the shelf, especially the UCM ship, because that thing looks amazing. People see that in the case, even if they don't know anything about our games. Anytime we've had that in the case, people walk up and they're like, "What is that?"
It is a sweet design.
To just continue production of the Kickstarter one, of course, we switched over to just change the front end bit. And, so, as far as I'm concerned, it's one step closer to 2-Up drop fleet. So I'm happy about that.
2-Up fleet.
That's right.
Do you remember, I don't know, were you familiar with the Babylon 5 games?
No.
So they had 2 games. One was B5 Wars and one was Fleet Action. And Fleet Action was more like a drop fleet style game where you had a small fleet or armada of ships that you waged a battle with. And then with B5 Wars, you would play, it's more like a Battletech style game. You'd play, 1 to 5 ships, and the models were 5 times bigger than the Fleet Action models and a lot more detailed, and you could get in there and paint them. And I was looking at those 2-Ups thinking that would be a fun way to play Fleet, more like a 500-point game and just a handful of ships and big models. And the big difference between Fleet Action and B5 Wars were the ships had a lot more durability in wars. It was more about single ship-on-ship combat than it was the fleet engagement. So the ship stats were bulkier and more interesting.
Yeah, even if you can get a starter set's worth of 2-Ups, that'd be sweet.
Yeah. Well, I think that's it for all the fun and exciting new stuff we're getting.
Yeah. So it's a pretty good recap though. New 2-Up, new Condor, got some new beta stuff coming out hopefully soon here, and of course the Dreadnoughts. So that's a healthy set of releases and the updates coming out.
In a pretty short order, too.
Yeah.
So, let's move on to game recaps. Don, I know that you're too busy selling product and painting models and writing rules, or just moving. You don't play much anymore with us. So, I know Jordan and I have cranked out a few games. Jordan, I think chronologically, you had the first one. You played Aaron, you said?
Yes, I did. The day before we played at Guard Tower. Before I left out of Cincinnati, I did a 2.0 game against Aaron. He had a pretty unconventional list. He was very infantry light in that game.
I didn't know that was a zone game for you guys.
Yep, he's for being a fleet player over a zone player. The changes for 2.0 have kind of evened him out. He's liking zone quite a bit more. Fleet is still his game, but the difference is lessened for him. So, and from the get go, it was, let's play these mechanics. It wasn't a real serious game, especially when I had about the standard amount of infantry, and he brought 2 squads of Immortals and a Medusa, and that was his infantry for the game. So he had, count it, 5 stands of infantry. So he was pretty low. I was not finding objectives early, even though I kind of had buildings taken. So with those extra points he had, he had quite a bit of tanks and demolisher capability. With me not finding stuff fast enough, I was getting demolished quick enough that the CQB, the infantry advantage I had, was getting whittled down very, very quickly. And the disadvantage I had with the amount of tanks I had versus him, or just armor, I guess, rather than tanks would be the proper word, was a race against time. And I got away by the skin of my teeth. There was one moment where, when I did finally get the objective, for some stupid reason, I decided to stay in there and shoot from the wall to try and kill a few of his armor units, and it was not the wiser choice. I should have just stuck tail and ran.
He who fights and runs away.
Right.
But you won. That was the important part, right?
I did win. I can't remember the score of the game. It was a pretty low score. We played Crucible, I think.
Oof. Tough mission for the PHR to begin with.
No, it wasn't Crucible. It was the one with the diagonal objectives and the focal points in the opposite corners.
Secure the flanks.
Yes.
Also not the easiest mission for PHR.
And then to add a little bit of flavor, we were doing extraction points rather than get the objective off the board, I think.
Oh, so this is like the same mission we played up at Dragon's Roost a couple months ago.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I mean, because it's been a little bit yet now. No, I take that back. I don't think we did extraction points. I think we just went off board.
Extraction points are a nice addition in version 2, though. I enjoy it. Changes up the gameplay a little bit.
Yeah.
Don?
I haven't even had a chance to use those yet, to be honest with you.
I really like them. I mean, running off the board edge is traditional drop zone, but it really is a change of pace because as an opponent, okay, maybe I can't stop you from getting the objective, but maybe I can stop you from getting it to the extraction point. And in the game that Jordan and I played, he parked on the extraction point. I couldn't get the objective over there.
It sounds like you have to survive to a certain turn, right? Isn't that how it works?
No, so it's a point on the board where you have to take the objectives to score your second point.
Okay, gotcha.
So
yeah, like you can't go off the table edge. So you're going to have either like a focal point or a critical location that's also your extraction point at the end of the game.
All right.
Predetermined locations, and essentially you have to, end of turn 6, you have to be within 3 inches of it,
right,
to be in the right spot to get extracted.
Right, that's what I meant. Like there's a. Do you have until was it turn 6? You said.
Yeah, it's you have until the end of the game. You have to have the objective. You have to park the objective within 3 inches of that that extraction point through the end of the game in order to score 2 points instead of 1.
Right. Okay.
And it's a very subtle difference, but it's a huge difference in how you play out. Even if you're playing targets of opportunity, it just completely changes the way you play that mission because it's a new variable.
You have to protect that objective for the rest of the game.
Right.
I mean, it's one thing to find it and get it out of the building. It's another thing to not get that little dropship that your infantry is now flying around and get blown out of the sky on your way to the extraction point by the end of the game.
Right. Plus, usually, traditionally, you would go to the back of the board, which is going to hopefully, typically, be a safer place for you. So this way, you're able to take it somewhere where it's not going to be so safe. So.
Well, we were playing backboard extraction points in that game, but you can play it one of 3 ways. Where at the beginning of the game, you know your extraction point's either going to be on your side of the table. This is a player choice at the beginning. The center of the table, so it's going to be kind of aggressive, or even your opponent's side of the table. So you have to go and find, and then you actually. So even with it, there's a bit of variance you can do, and there's subtle differences there as well.
Yeah, it's definitely a nice addition to the game.
I haven't played where you have to get to your opponent's side of the board, but if you're going to have to protect an objective into enemy territory to score the extra point, that I think that'd make for an interesting game to play once or twice. I don't know if I'd like it regularly though.
Definitely wouldn't like it in a tournament event, but it would be fun to try. So that next day, we went down to I went down, you came over to the guard tower. I played Drop Fleet. There's a battle report that's posted. It wasn't a very, let me rephrase that. It was a very long game. We didn't get through turn 3, but I had the opportunity to sit down and play Ron, which the closest I came to that was when I did a demo for him and his missus when he first got into the game. You and Don sold him on it at Adepticon.
Yep.
And it was, he's very concerned and very focused about making sure that he understands the rules and is ready for the Michigan Grand Tournament. So it was a very crunchy game. It was a lot of rule discussion. It was a lot, we spent a lot of time stopping and discussing the strategy and the tactics and the rules involved with everything and ensuring that the turn sequences were right and kind of putting some polish on his knowledge of the game. And we ended up having to call it, at the end of turn 3. And it was a surprisingly tight game at that point. It was the first time I had used destroyers. And it's the first time I'd seen Kievs. So I went and stalked those Kievs as quick as I could, and half of I had 2 Jasons. One of them got blown up immediately, so I really didn't get a chance to see what they could do. But destroyers, fighting against destroyers has made me appreciate PHR light broadsides a lot more. The Priam launched 4 with 12 light shots off the side. She's a destroyer killer, straight up. 12 dice out of 4 up on a destroyer. Those are really good odds you're taking that ship out. So
yeah, Kievs are definitely scary too. So
yeah. Well, and I mean, I've used the Priam has been a staple in my list for a while. I love the ship, and I think it's very effective. And but those 12 dice at 5 up on everything else, it's like, well, if my dice are with me, then it's not bad. But when they're not, man, you just bouncing shots off of everything. But so that was an interesting game, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in the final thoughts section. But Jordan, you got to play Travis that day too. You guys played Drop Zone, and that was Travis's first full 1,500-point game of Zone, wasn't it?
It was.
So you went and you humiliated him in public and made him never want to play the game again.
I don't know about humiliating. I did win, but it was a fairly narrow win. For as bad as his dice were, and oh my, they were bad. He still gave as good as he got. He kind of made the beginning mistake of he spread his forces too thin, and he kind of committed to too many places too early, and it allowed me to pick my fights against him, infantry-wise.
That's a big deal when you're fighting against Jaltari, too.
It is, because he did have a couple squads of firstborn, and his bad dice, and I had not a crazy good, but slightly above average infantry roll, the CQB roll, the first fight. That now granted, I was rolling in there with 60 or 70 CQB dice. I committed a lot of infantry against his firstborn, but I wiped. I guess it was just one squad out that turn, but that was a big chunk, and it allowed me to jump over, really the next turn to the next building and overpower his smaller squad of Braves, and then I think he had more firstborn and Braves in the forest, which was our third large structure center board. We avoided them, and I don't think we actually got to do any flaming or shooting into it. It kind of had to be the ignored side. Part of that was though that he found the objective in the forest fairly quickly because he had a couple of squads there. Unfortunately for him, his objective was shot out of the sky before he got it off the table.
I think I saw that. Yeah, he was just down the table for me, and he made a comment about you shooting it down. Did you Zukov it?
No, it was gun wagons.
Okay, it's almost worse.
Yeah, it comes down to those couple little rolls, like so just the way initiative goes. I think if he had if I wouldn't have had the activations and he would have, it might have worked out better for him.
Well, that was a week or two later. We played again. We got a game of Fleet in when the Dreadnought rules came out.
If you want to call that one a game.
Yeah, I got handedly embarrassed, and you got to unleash the full destructive firepower of a London-class Dreadnought.
Yeah, I'm not going to claim any amount of strategy here. I think
Thanks, I appreciate that.
You stumbled into a position, and I stumbled into a very good position. I mean, so I had an Avalon and
the London.
And the way I moved first turn versus the way you moved the first two turns, and the way the activations fell, it could not have went more perfect for me.
So if I can I tell you? And I think I did. I expressed my goals here. I thought that the Romulus was going to be obscured from the London by the debris field.
Mm-hmm.
It was a dense debris field. I was knocking 12 inches off a signature. I thought, I'm good. The London can't see me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to eviscerate that Avalon and that Madrid that you had over there, secure the space for my Ganymede to take over the cluster, and then I was going to swing around and come after the London. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, this is the perfect strategy. I can weapons free, overcharge that burn through, and slice that Avalon in half. But it turned out that you did have a clear shot on the Romulus. And even with that clear shot, though, I want to make this clear. You weapons freed with an Avalon and a London.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, you shot at me with the Madrid and the Jakarta that was along with the Avalon. So all of those ships unloaded on that Romulus. And it still survived the turn. That's a hell of a lot of firepower to dump into one ship and to have it still have 5 hull the start of the next turn. If I would have gotten that activation off, I would have at least done some damage. And we did. We rolled out some dice just because I refused to let it go off the table without at least seeing what the dice rolls would feel like. And it would have. I mean, it would have returned some damage. I still would have lost it. But it's paramount to understanding how to use those things. Silent running is going to be a big deal with Dreadnoughts.
Yeah, it's especially the first turn.
Yeah.
Did you reach the cap to do the crippling table twice?
Yeah. Yep, crippled twice, and then what was fun was when it blew up, I had a overload drives or overload reactor card, whatever it is, it allows you to max out the table. So I got the nice big 8-inch explosion that sucked his Jakarta in, and it didn't damage the Avalon. It was just out of range, but it did suck his Jakarta into like the time space or the temporal vortex and destroy it.
Yeah, isn't that just like an auto kill it?
Yeah.
It was like 4 points of damage.
And the bitterness of this forum was it was literally like a 16th of an inch out of range.
It was.
Yeah,
I mean, it was just. Oh man! I think I even tweaked my base a little bit. I'm like, nope, see if it's range. And it wasn't anything just to tweak it forward. But we did do a battle report on that, and regardless of the fact that I got absolutely decimated, it was really fun and exciting to see that many fistfuls of dice getting thrown at a ship.
Right.
Dreadnoughts are legal at the GT, right?
Yeah, at the GT. Yeah, you can use them at the GT.
It's going to be fun to see how many people are using them.
Yeah, and I'll be letting people proxy those if they need to.
Oh, I will be. I have my proxy done.
I went weapons free, and I had the command card that increased the shot value, the attack value of all mass drivers.
Yes, you did. That was nuts.
That card works really well with the London. Just saying.
That does bring up the interesting point, because I had the one that allows a PHR ship to fire its broadside twice. The energy glaives of a Romulus are not expressly broadside weapons. Is that intentional?
That would be a Dave question, actually. I don't know.
Well, Dave didn't make the show this week. He's vacationing.
So, I mean, we can put that down as Ask Dave later.
Yeah, we should ask Dave later. Because that really... I mean, it doesn't make the Romulus a useless ship by any stretch of the imagination, but it is one of those things that I feel like it's still a broadside weapon, even though it doesn't have broadside in the name.
Yeah, it's sculpted like a broadside, and it shoots like a broadside.
It's everything but a broadside in name.
I guess the problem with that, though, is because of the overclock rule. If it was a broadside weapon, you could overclock it and then shoot it twice.
Yeah, I think you're the only one seeing a problem with that. I mean, and quite honestly, so it doesn't change the accuracy of the weapon. It just gives you an additional shot with it. Whereas Jordan had 42 dice and he subtracted 1 from the accuracy.
No, that's not what that does.
Oh, what's it do?
It added 1 shot to every profile that said mass driver.
Oh, Jesus. So you ended up with like 50 dice.
Yeah, so 2 attacks turned to 3, and 8 turned to 9. But the fusillade ones, the 2 turned to 3, which turned to 6 rather than 4. So that was a little significant too.
Yeah, that was a good time though. Well, we're just clocking right along here. Any other games anyone squeezed in the last month since we played?
Hopefully I'll be getting back on the wagon soon here. So
Yeah, you better, slacker.
Well, I'd like to play not only a game, but a game that I'm not playtesting.
Do you think you'll get a chance to play in the tournament?
Well, I mean, if there's an odd amount of players, I'll have to play.
You'll have to play? Is that how it is?
Well, I get to play, I guess I should say.
Well, next up we've got Oh, go ahead, Jordan.
You got a game of Infinity in, didn't you?
Me?
Yeah, since the last one of these.
No, my work schedule has been a lot crazier lately. I've been working in Sydney and in Lima a lot more than Findlay. So tonight actually would have been an Infinity night, but I ended up halfway through my day driving down to Lima to work on a couple machines there. So I couldn't make it back in time to get a game in and then come home, see the family at all, and set up for recording tonight. So hopefully I'll get back on the Infinity wagon in a week or two here. But so, hobby. Hey Jordan, how's your hobbying going?
I feel like I don't have a hobby right now.
Well,
it's kind of hard to paint when everything's packed up.
Home ownership is hell, sir. So Jordan has successfully found a house.
Yep, I'm buying a house. There's a bit of anticipation about setting up the new hobby room at the new house. I'm going to plan out everything and setting up a new area, which Don just got to do, right?
Yep, got my office all set up. So hopefully soon too as well. I can get back in the hobby. And I have a couple of buildings I want to work on. A couple of N-scale buildings that I've had dry fitted, but not fully assembled for a while now. They've been kind of teasing me while I worked on the Dreadnought and all that stuff.
Well, you lazy bastards. Since the last time we've chatted here, I've painted a Fire Drake, a Gaia, a pair of Spirits, 8 Yaris, a couple of Raven A's, a couple of crossbow chassis.
I didn't see any UCM stuff you did.
Well, that's because I just did them really quick. My UCM scheme is such a cheater scheme that I don't like to show it off. It literally requires less effort than my PHR, which it's not like my PHR scheme is overly complex. I also painted up a couple of Zombicide heroes. I got Rolf and Selly or Sela or whatever her name is painted because I needed to change a pace. But and 2 more Medea and another Jason I got painted for GT, and also my 2-up Ajax, which will proxy as my Romulus for the GT if I go that route.
Is that 2 or 3 Jasons for you now?
I have 3 Jasons and 2 Ariadnes painted. Well, I had 2 blister packs of destroyers, so I did 3 of them as blockade runners, and I did 3 of them with the guns, and then I magnetized the prow weapons.
Okay.
So I can swap them out. So I've got 3 blockade runners and 3 standards. It's just whatever I want to use them as. So I guess I could do 3 Electras if I wanted to, but I've only painted 2 of the 3 with the guns on the sides. I've got 1 actually up here on my shelf here that needs to get finished up, but it just hasn't been a priority because I didn't foresee myself using 6 destroyers. Yeah, that's me throwing paint on things and ruining them.
Alright. Yeah, we got some community requests this time.
We did. Jordan, what were you saying?
Oh, I was just going to make a comment about how packing everything up made me realize not necessarily just drop zone, but hobby in general. How much crap I really had.
I'm gonna go ahead and finish.
I don't know about everyone listening. If the album isn't a problem, the amount of unpainted miniatures one has. It's sad when you could paint 2 models a day for 2 years. I have way too many Reaper bones. I'm just going to leave that there.
Isn't Bones 4 starting pretty soon?
No, Bones 4 will fulfill early next year.
Don't they have a Kickstarter starting again soon?
Reaper, but not Reaper. The Mech Combat game, CAV.
Oh, yeah.
The Kickstarter, that starting soon.
Okay.
About that.
So, Mike Hackett, we played with him in Columbus, the guy from New York. He shared a link with me from ReaperCon, and they did a Cav drop ship for the mechs. And if I can find
I saw.
I think that's going to be. I think that's going to be in the new Kickstarter, and I will back for that specific model because that is a bulk lander if I've ever seen one. That thing is sweet.
It was pretty. Yeah, I saw the picture of it. I know it's resin cast and part 3D print, I think.
Yeah, I think it was just a prototype because the guy that painted it threw up a blog about it, and I read through it, and he was talking about how it had been 3D printed. But I think I don't know if the final one will be. I don't know what it'll be made out of, but I will get one for terrain.
What's that?
It's a CAV dropship for their mechs. Cav is basically Reaper's version of BattleTech.
Right, yeah, I saw that at DevCon, I think it was.
So they got this sweet looking dropship for the mechs, and it's 10 mil scale, but it's huge. I mean, the thing's probably a foot long. So
trying to see if I can find it here. Is it the thing looks like Starscream?
No, it's kind of like a giant box with some wings and an offset cockpit.
Alrighty.
But we got sidetracked. Don, you had started to say we have community requests we threw up in the Facebook group. If anyone had anything they wanted us to talk about, and we did get a few requests. Josh asked about building forest. And I know Fox had given him some advice, but Jordan and I both use a similar method, and I don't know, where did you learn that from, Jordan?
I kind of saw how you tested out first, and if I remember correctly, that went off of how you started and said, well, those will break off too easy. I think I tried your way at first, and I couldn't get the tree to stick the foam core. Like, well, this is just going to be easier if I glue a tree to a base and put grass on the base to bolt it in. It'll pack easier. It won't break as easy, and I can kind of have some options of different size forest with not having to have as many trees made up, and
right.
It seemed to be pretty functional.
To provide some clarity there, what I had started doing was I used dollar store foam board, and I had built a handful of forest areas, and I had actually mounted little hills on them and flocked them up. They were nice little terrain pieces, and I had mounted the trees, but they were really ineffective for gameplay because the trees were mounted. You couldn't really put infantry in them well. You couldn't put other units in them. So what I went and did was I cut the same foam board, angled edges, and the approximate dimensions for the structure size, painted it brown, flocked it, and then took smaller pieces, did the same process in awkward shapes, and I mounted the trees on that, so you could put the trees on them and put the trees on the footprint, so you'd have a 3D piece of terrain. But it was also easy enough that you could remove those from the board to place infantry on the map, or to place, stuff down so that you could actually play with the piece of terrain. So it was 3D when you were looking at the board, but you could remove it and easily use it. So it was in the game. And Jordan, I think you spent a little more on your trees. Your trees looked a lot nicer than mine.
I didn't spend an incredible amount. I bought 2 or 3 varieties of trees on Amazon, and they were, I don't know, $10 or $15 packs. It was cheap Chinese plastic. I might have dug a little bit more and been a little picky about the ones I chose, but and then I might have had $5 in the 28 millimeter black bases. But you're around like a 40K or any normal heroic scale war game black flat base.
Right. So I'll try to snap some photos of mine. I know your stuff's all boxed up, Jordan. I'll try to get some photos up in the CV1 group so people can kind of see what we're talking about and how we did it. Josh also asked our favorite rule from version 2. Don, what did you say your favorite rule from V2 was?
My big favorite rule is, I guess it's not technically a rule, but I like all the different terrain options now that we're going to have. So, the city boards do look amazing. They do get a little boring after a while. So now we get to use forests. Now we get to use barricades. And there's no, the forests sort of have, they just give you light rules on how to do them. So forests have three different sizes, and there's dimensions on how to do those. Same thing with barricades. Barricades are in certain inches of sections, but there's no limit to how many barricades or how long of a barricade section you can put up. So
yeah, and the barricades with the 5DP, it's a huge lifesaver for being able to put infantry in the field to do something.
Right, because they're getting the cover. I think they're getting
within 2 inches.
Soft cover and
hard.
And body. Is it hard cover?
Yeah, soft and hard. So they get +1 to their armor stat, and they get +2 to being hit.
Oh, that's body cover. So they get hard cover and body cover. The other thing that's going to be kind of cool about that too is it also opens up scenario writing too. So that now that infantry can survive in the open, that gives us opportunities to create scenarios where they're going to be able to sustain themselves in the open. And in fact, a couple of small changes, just to note how much we're thinking about those types of things, is the UCM mortar squads and the flak teams are going to be getting displaced formation to help them survive out in the open a little bit.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Another thing it does is it opens up, if you're the crafty type, your terrain building. It allows you to build things like sandbag bunkers.
Oh, it could be anything. All those people that have those N-scale cars that they have, they can now create
barricades.
Barricade section based on those, so they actually get to repurpose something that they were already using, so that's good.
Yeah, no, it's really nice. And one of the things I've always found unique about Drop Zone is how interesting the board already looks. And I've always felt like Scatter Train made the game look more amazing, but was never used. And this is really just the perfect excuse to use that Scatter Train now.
Yep, and then this also allows you to scale back on the amount of buildings you're going to have out there now too, because there's no real guidelines as into height restrictions on the barricades either. So you can set up wall sections. You can even use 28 millimeter wall sections, and those can be barricades as well. So
I think my goal is to look at. I have a really nice Deep Cut Studios grass mat and I've played with this with like Robotech and other games, but covering half of it with city tiles to get like the edge of an urban area, so you still got the forest just outside the city, but you've got that nice long street with buildings along it, and it gives you
like having that opportunity too. So you're gonna be able to do ice sports now. You're gonna be able to do. I mean, you could have before, but it looked a little wonky from the buildings and that type of
right.
mat. So now we can go full fledged in that area, and then even beyond that, like eventually when we get through our backlog, we're gonna be doing terrain bits that fit the other factions. So I mean, you could do jungle layouts with Atari buildings and cool stuff like that in the future here.
So Jordan, what about you? Favorite rule for V2?
I'm in favor of about all of them. Since I kind of have a hint of what yours might be, I'm going to say a different one. I really like the idea and the concept of the free transport. From the resistance player's perspective, does it make sense that this recon would be too stuck up to take a ride out on a bus after their Raven got blown up?
Right.
I don't know. I mean, what, the seats are too dirty? No, they're going to jump in the bus and get the hell out of there.
We ride your hoopty bus.
Right? Or even the Jacksons. If you want to go to the military vehicle side.
Yeah, it definitely does open up the game. Gates, dropships, everything. It's a big change.
Well, to take it even a step further, what if it's 2 squads of resistance fighters and 2 identical buses? It was like, oh, well, that's the other squad's bus. I want to steal that.
We can't take Dave's bus, man. He'll be pissed.
I left my bag lunch on that bus, you motherfucker.
Right?
Oh, Don has to go drop our first F-bomb.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, now we've got the explicit rating on this one. Sheesh, Don.
You can edit that.
So, Jordan, you didn't steal drop and shoot from me. I appreciate that.
I do like to drop and shoot.
Yeah, but as a resistance player, it's not like it's anything new to you.
No, but being able to drop and shoot with the demo 410,
yeah,
it's quite handy.
Well, and as a Republic player, drop and shoot in general is a freaking game changer for me. Because it does allow me to reposition and still get some shots off. Because almost everything's 2 up, so I'll take a 50-50 chance to hit something if it means I can move that Zeus and those 3 Odins 8 inches to the right, redrop them, and get some shots off. That's a huge difference for PHR to be able to reposition and still get some shots off, because accuracy's great, range is great, damage is really good, but volume of fire is not their forte. So,
well, I think a subtle change with the drop and shoot, with the volume of fire, is along with some of the other flame changes, it makes units a bit more viable just because they have so many shots.
Yeah.
The drop and shoot aspect of it. I mean, it's a pretty significant threat to move some units up board. Flame units up board typically have a shorter range.
Mm-hmm.
Drop them, and then a squad's dropping 10, 15 shots.
Yeah.
Typically.
Yeah.
So even with the 2 up accuracy, you're still gonna net some decent hits with that volume of fire.
I think the flame units are a 3, but even that, it's 5 up,
Yeah, it's still a 33% chance.
Yeah. So Dave asked us, and Ron echoed that. Now I know Ron's a fleet player; he doesn't play zone. I don't know that Dave plays zone either, but they're asking for tips on list building. And truthfully, we had all discussed. We have a segment called Ask the Swede, where our friend Patrick Werner, who is also Swedish and a hell of a player, was going to break down and discuss strategies, tactics, and whatnot for us. Unfortunately, he is in Sweden right now. Well, unfortunate for us, fortunate for him. I'm sure it's great to go home every now and then. So he's not here to answer that. But he is going to be at the GT, and I think the hope is we're going to record at the GT and maybe get our first official Ask the Swede session there, where he can break down the winning fleet lists that we'll see. But that doesn't do us any good right now. So, Don, do you have any tips on drop fleet list building for new players?
I mean, I'm gonna have to stick to the tried and true and go with do the core set, build what's listed when on the sheet, and then what I always suggest is just like see what's missing. Like look what's available, see what you think is missing. Like what seems fun to you, and how do you want to build around that. So each of the factions have their own different ways they can go about doing things. So is the close action your thing? Is burn through your thing? Is bombardment your thing? Whatever it is. And then once you fill out as much of that as you feel is appropriate, then look what you're missing in the end. Do I have enough launch? Do I have enough this? So it's kind of one of those things where I know when I list build, I go at it like, this is what I want the core of my fleet to do. So, it's with Scourge. I know initially I started out I just really like their close action abilities, so I went that direction, and then I just made sure I had enough of everything else to kind of even out the list after I got what I wanted of that particular play style put on paper.
Jordan, what about you? Any thoughts for list building for new players in Fleet?
So I know most of the current missions, I think it's kind of a current accepted ratio. About a 30 list in 1250 game should be drop capable. Either your cruisers, your bulk landers, or your drop ships. If it's less than that, then you might not have enough to threaten enough sectors. And if you have much more than that, it's pushing towards German made, but you might not have enough firepower to fight off everything killing your drop capable stuff. But I think that's kind of the general area of a little less or a little more, but not a lot of less, and probably not a ton more. Anything beyond that, I think it is player preference. As a new player, I would recommend going a little heavier with everything else because it brings your piece count down and your ships are more survivable, and you won't be overwhelmed by a deeper strategy because you're having to manage more units and more spots on the board. It'll telegraph what you're doing a little bit, but it's less overwhelming.
Well, if you want to go heavier, Dreadnoughts will certainly lower your piece count. All right. Well, let's move into final thoughts. We're coming up right here on an hour. So, Michigan Grand Tournament is coming up in just 4 weeks. Don, you still haven't sent out tournament packs. A little outraged.
Yeah, I'm working on it, all right?
You want to tell us about missions and special rules for the GT this year?
Yeah, so what I'm going to be doing is, even if for some reason the update hasn't gone out for 2.0 yet, the stuff I just mentioned, for Zone, I'll go ahead and put that in the player pack. I can't see any reason why it wouldn't be posted, but I'll make sure everybody gets that ahead of time. Like I said, it's not major changes in the game, so I don't feel like somebody's going to be at any particular advantage because of those changes. And then that will also be, since it was only the core units that have been posted so far, we've also gone through and pretty much polished up the rest of the stuff too. So I do need Dave to look over a couple of things, make sure they look pretty good. I can't see any reason why those shouldn't be available. Most of those things are going to be like a couple points tweaks. Transport need to be relocated, of course, because of the new transport rules. So it's not going to be like devastatingly different stuff here. So yeah, I'll make sure I put all that stuff together. Fleet's going to be $12.50. But what I'm going to be trying to do is incorporate at least some new scenarios into this. I don't want to just go straight from the scenario packs that we already have. I'd like to change it up a little bit. And since scenario writing is going to be huge on the list coming up for me with the new expansion next year, I think I'd like to put a few new things into that as well. Also, if you're not familiar with the format, we'll have the overall winner as well. So I've actually been having to poke around. I'm a little bit behind on getting a trophy for that as well.
So, new scenarios, new rules. This is going to be new ships. This is going to be a very interesting tournament. There's not going to be a lot of meta mastered coming into this, since we'll have Dreadnoughts brand spanking new. We're going to have all these new version 2 rules. It's going to be an interesting time. So I'll definitely be bringing my PHR.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing everything works out for everybody. It's also a good testing thing. Since I'll be there on site, I can firsthand see how everything's working out. So it works out good for me as well.
I can't wait for you to have to go through and hand calculate all of the handwritten lists.
Oh, yeah.
So, do you want to give a shout out to anyone who's providing price support for the GT?
For the GT, we are. TT Combat.
Oh, just those guys.
Yeah.
Just those guys.
Well, there's other companies that, let's see, go to the GT website here. So they got, I don't know what we're all getting price support from, but their sponsors are BC Comics, which is the local comic and games place, AFK Games, Gamer Sanctuary, another store. Broken Egg is there every year. Badger. These minis were there. Warlord is supporting this year, so I think that's neat for them.
So last year we got those really awesome little counters.
Yeah, so the everybody that takes place in our tournaments get a certain amount of acrylic per player. So actually what we're doing this year is measuring sticks.
I think you'd mentioned that last time.
Today?
After you said it, it seemed really familiar.
Oh, man. Alright, well, they're still cool. Alright.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be like a downer there, man.
Actually, give me 1 second here and I'll bring up, because I couldn't remember the measurements last time, but I have them here now. We'll bring up the Michigan GT discussion here. Where are we at? I know I definitely had coherency rules in there. Oh, that's the public one. Oops. Of course, it's a closed group, so it's kind of hard to find them. There it is. And as Eric Sampson, who's doing all that stuff for us, he has his own laser cutting stuff he does at home. Here we go. So yeah, 3/6, 12 inch, and then that kind of covers all your coherency stuff. and then 2 inches and 1 inch kind of fills in the rest of the. And it's a little bit of like a, I don't say L shape, but like a little like cheap gun looking shape.
It's 12 inches
got a
long.
nice logo across the front. I don't know what color we're getting this year.
It's 12 inches long?
Yeah.
Wow. I'm going to knock over so much crap with that.
So obviously we have the 3 and 6s for your standard Y coherency and zone. 12 and 12 and 3 as well for fleet. Since you have your battle group coherency as well.
Yeah. Cool.
And then 2 inch. Oh, that's right. I did 2 inches. 2 inches was the how close you abandoning the structures and stuff like that. That's all within 2 inches.
Man, I can just see Jordan getting 2 and 6 inches confused a lot. He's just gonna let it slide.
So, but yeah,
not even worth a response.
Obviously, this isn't going to help you with a lot of your movement stuff, but it's a real quick way to check all your coherency without
That is true.
everything over with the tape measure.
So there's not 1 inch marking lines on the 12 inch side.
No, I didn't get that detailed into it. I didn't want to push too much. Because if you really wanted to get into it, you can kind of scribe your own 1 inch marks on those. I didn't expect people to be using them for a lot of movement measuring, just for more for like coherence stick.
So Don, what are you thinking for the tournament pack? Couple of weeks, 2 weeks before the event, probably?
Yeah, I'm guaranteeing it 2 weeks out. So I'm going to start on scenarios next week. So hopefully, actually, maybe by the end of next week, I can figure those out. So I might be borrowing a few from like Fox and the guys. They've done some tournaments with some new stuff. I'll try some new things here.
Cool. Do you have a head count for the tournament so far?
Actually, I have not. I think I'm bringing it up right now. Where is the store? Oh, it's hanging up. Oh, there we go. Very cool. So, drops on the drop fleets. Drop fleet is sitting at 7 in stock. Started with 16.
So that's 9?
That's 9. And then zone is 10 in stock, so that's 6. But I know that we still have a few other people that haven't signed up for these yet. So I'm expecting probably somewhere around 12 for fleet and 8 for zone, kind of a mark there. I think we had pretty much like that last year, didn't we?
I think it was 10 and 10 both days last year.
Was it 10 and 10?
Jordan and I didn't stay for fleet last year, but you had 2 other people show up for fleet that didn't come for zone.
Okay, I know of at least a handful of people who haven't signed up yet. So
awesome. It'd be nice to get some good numbers.
Yeah, I mean anything 10 or better is going to be good enough for something like a local GT, you know.
Right. All right. The last thing I've got on our final thoughts was the idea of what it. We talked a lot last time about community building, and one of the things that I got out of my last game with Ron, the one where it was 4.5 hour game that we only got 3 turns into, was the idea of what it takes to kind of help your community grow. And a game like that where you're like, well, I got 3 turns in, we didn't get to a scoring turn. Typically you're not like, man, that was a fun game. But those are the games that really help your player base, that teach somebody something, that give them a chance to break down with somebody they don't see every day, a chance to get into the rules in a way that they normally don't. And it kind of hit me after the fact, man, when I was cutting the battle report up, that, you know, that's really, I think, what helps a community thrive and grow is you have to be willing to sacrifice a little bit of your fun in order to keep the community going and keep it growing. You have to be willing to do those teaching games that, you know I can sit down and play Gordo and I can have a fun game and it's going to be a good time, but if I just sit and play Gordo and have fun all the time, then that doesn't really grow the community at all. That doesn't encourage people to play or to develop and to, you know, take that love and that passion for the game out into their local communities and continue to grow this thing. The Ohio group just broke 80 members. We are officially over 80 members. And I'm not going to say that's all active players, but that's a decent-sized group.
Especially for a state group, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's 40K groups that are 50 times that size, whatever. But for what we all know is a pretty niche game, you know, in the middle of the Midwest here, I feel pretty happy with knowing that we've got 80 members that play in some capacity.
Well, it also comes down to opportunities of play, I guess I would say. So it's not just, I mean, yeah, if Gordon was available every week and you went down and played with him, I mean, yeah, that's cool and everything, but then you don't get your groups of players that come out to the conventions and stuff like that. You know, but that's where that really kind of shines is, you know, you have a games day once a month, like you guys are setting up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can get like anywhere between 4 and 10 players out there. You get a tournament going at even just local convention like the GT or CincyCon or something like that, and you get somewhere around 10 players, and you know that makes it worth your time to do a bit of traveling and have fun with other people.
Yeah. All right. Well, guys, do you have any other final thoughts?
No, I think with the GT coming up, we're gonna be trying to do the live set there. Start introducing some more of our segments into the game, and I think I'm going to try and bug Dave to get on with us for the following episode after the GT, and we'll get some thoughts from Dave, and we'll be well into hopefully a lot of the units and stuff like that.
Hopefully Jordan will be in his house with decent internet and a solid headset.
Right.
Right.
One thing I forgot to ask you though is, are we going to try and do the record and do video as well for that, or are you just going to do straight voice for us? Because I know you got your YouTube channel as well.
Yeah, I think what I'm going to try to do, if I can pull it off, is battle report all my games at the GT. So if I can get 6 battle reports done, that'll be fantastic. I know most of the players that are going to be there, so I don't know that it should be a huge problem. And then I was thinking after the Drop Fleet tournament, we would get together and maybe order pizza or drinks or whatnot and kind of find a quiet place to sit down. We'll get Patrick and maybe if anybody else is interested in kind of sitting in, and we'll just kind of freeform an episode there at the GT.
Yep. That sounds pretty good. Also, there's a potential opportunity for Head Table to get a live stream game.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I guess, I forget how it came about. I think it's one of the games that was supposed to be doing live streaming either backed out or they're not doing it for some reason. So they asked people to put their names in the hat. And I don't know if they've picked those yet or not, but there is potential that Head Tables could come around. And then the commentary, since I'll probably be playing, will have to be the players themselves. But it gives everybody a chance to kind of talk about what they're doing, their strategies, and I think that would be kind of cool.
Absolutely. All right, guys, we've managed to run long again, so now I'm going to see if I can clean up some editing here. But anyone got anything else, or are we going to wrap this up?
I think we're good to wrap up.
Jordan?
Yeah, I think we're good.
All righty. Well, guys,
everybody enjoys our second episode.
like it, share it, subscribe to it, push it around. Hopefully we can get some other people going. Also, join the Facebook group. Share your comments, thoughts, and questions there. We're going to try to bring them on to the cast here and answer them as best we can. Especially if we're going to, I don't know, maybe get Dave on here if you've got some questions for him.
Yeah, we can give everybody a heads up, a little bit more of a heads up. Dave's going to be able to ask some questions.
Yeah.
Obviously, not every question to Dave is going to be something we can answer. So.
No, I think we'll we only had like 4 questions because I just threw up the post yesterday. But, if we've got a good number of posts, we'll kind of cherry pick the best ones or let Dave cherry pick the best ones, however it may be.
Cool. And then I think when Carnivale finally gets to the shelves, we'll get Lewis on here and we can have a nice big Carnivale episode.
Awesome. Are you going to have Carnivale by the GT?
No, it'll be after that.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's call this a night. Night, guys.
All right, night.
All right.